Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news this Wednesday morning, the 26th of November. And let's get straight into it. Amorim's not to blame. That's some of the stuff that's going on this morning in the fandom and in the media. Amorim's not to blame while others want to blame Amorim. We've also got spin. So much spin, you're going to get dizzy with all the transfer updates that typically come out after a shit Manchester United performance. And I also have to be very careful because one of your comments last night, and I do listen to your comments and I read it back. I won't name the name because I don't want them to be, a legend or piled on. Who could go either way with this, because the comment was, why are you so reactionary? Stop pouring petrol on the fire. Things aren't that bad. I'll leave you with that. Things aren't that bad, and moaning about losing to Everton, who had 10 men at Old Trafford, is reactionary, and things are not that bad. I even see people out there talk, the propaganda. I do wonder about whether certain accounts are paid or bots. One of the two, because I wake up this morning and people are talking about how good Mason Mount's been this season. Literally a pile of shit on Monday night, but now he's good. He's having a good season. I mean, I suppose it goes back to standards, really. It goes back to standards, doesn't it? Anyway, what are we going to be talking about on the show? United's priority is still Elliot Anderson. Great. My priority when I was about 15 was Pamela Anderson. It didn't happen. We've also got the latest on João Gomez, the latest on Xerxes, a few people heading out on loan, Semenyo as well. We've got a new scout who's coming in. And this is hilarious. So we've got a new scout coming in. Sit down here and ready for the spin. We've got a new scout who's going to work with Faval. He's worked at Brighton. He's worked at West Ham. He's worked at Chelsea. Listen to this. It's brilliant. The leaks coming out to make this sound like an amazing signing. He can't put a pair of shorts on. He's not actually a player. He's not actually a player. He's a guy who says maybe we should buy him. But people are getting excited about this. Spin. So listen to this, right? Yeah, listen to this. He found Mitoma in Japan for Brighton. It's funny because I don't think Brighton actually bought Mitoma from Japan. He also discovered Caicedo at Brighton. Yeah, this is hilarious because Man United got offered Caicedo before Brighton. So we've gone and got the guy who found Caicedo when we found him and said no. So sorry if I'm not too excited about a guy who is good at scouting. We've always had people who've highlighted players. We just bloody ignore it. I'm not that excited about that bollocks either. I'm still focused on how we lost to Everton and why we're so shit. But, don't let it ruin your Wednesday. Jump on the spin train. That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, the money Mount's doing great as well. I mean, I feel great now already. I bet Robert McCormack's having a right big old laugh. And then he said something else. Yeah, Mason Mount, brilliant season. Yeah. That's why he can't start games anymore. That's why he can't play longer than an hour. Brilliant signing. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, I want to start off talking. Look, where do you stand on this? Are you Amorim out? Keep up the great work, says Cunny. Mate, I'd rather we don't go down to the low IQ level at the start of the show here. I know we have simpletons who can't live in between Amorim in and Amorim out. For some people, you've either got to be Amorim's the best thing in the world or get him out of my club. I think a lot of us operate in the middle. I think we're sort of like, I don't want to sack another manager. I don't think he's been given a fair crack of the whip, but I'm also not convinced he's the right guy. You don't have to be a Sith. You don't have to live in absolutes. Like so many people today, are you in or are you out? Actually, I'm not actually massively either. I'm sort of like, I don't want to sack another manager and I hope he's going to turn it around. But I don't think he is going to turn it around because this ownership is absolutely rubbish. And that's sort of where I sit. And some people just can't deal with that because they're simpletons. I read the comments and they go, oh, I wish he'd just admit he's Amorim out because he's been so negative about Amorim. I wish he'd admit he's Amorim out. No, I wish you'd admit you're a moron and that you don't understand complexity and levels of a conversation. Not everybody is an absolute. Not everyone's yes or no. Some people actually operate in between, and actually it's good life advice. But I don't think that, I've got to say, I do think that when it comes to Amorim, he's not totally to blame. I would pose that question this morning. And one thing that I forgot to bring into the show last night, which I think adds credence to that, is that If I go, look, factually, when Ineos took over Manchester United, I think we were 8th. And they've been here for nearly 2 years. So Ineos took over as when we were 8th. We're now 10th. We were 15th last year. The win ratio is around 40% under Ineos. Some people think it's progress. Some people think we've fallen off. The scary thing is the fact that we're having that conversation 2 years down the line. Now, when Todd Boehly took over Chelsea, roughly 2 years ago, have they progressed or have they regressed? Well, they've progressed, haven't they? He's relentlessly put money into the football club. They've won trophies. They're in the Champions League. They're second in the league. From when Todd Boehly took over to where they are now, there's progress. From when Man City was taken over to where they are now, or in the first 2 years, there was progress. At most football clubs, when they get bought in the first 2 years, you see progress. What makes me laugh about Ineos's progress is it's always in the future. At the end of the day, we will. There is no progress. In my mind, there's no progress. I don't see progress. Their argument is things have got to get worse to get better. Well, I don't agree. Not in football. There are teams like bloody Brighton who are 6th. Forest were in the top 4 all of last season till the end. We've seen Sunderland in the top 4. There is no, it needs to get worse to get better. You're just making things worse. So when I look at it and they go 3 years, it's going to take 3 years. That to me is why we're losing to Everton. That to me is why we're losing to Brentford. That's to me why we're giving up second half wins and turning them into draws. Because the mentality at the top of the club and what's acceptable is it's fine to draw, it's fine to lose. And this comes down to one very, very simple thing. And this is why I don't totally blame Amorim, because the culture is set by the owners. They've basically gone into that club, sacked half the people, destroyed morale, and then they've said it's a long way back. So if I said to you, here's your project, here's your homework, and if you don't do it, you're going to get the sack. You're going to be like, I've got to do this project and I've got to do a good job. And you look at the project and you look at the homework and you go, right, if I work really hard, I can get this done in maybe 6 months, 12 months max, 6 to 12 months. How long have I got? 3 years. Oh, fuck it off. I'm watching I'm a Celebrity tonight. Yeah, I'm going out with my mates tonight. And that's just human nature. If you give somebody a really hard job, but then you give them a ridiculous amount of time to do it, it's feet up time. I used to do it at school. I'd leave my homework until Sunday night at 10 o'clock every fucking week. Now, some of you probably are better organised than me, but that's what I would do. If I got homework for 2 weeks' time, I'd leave it until the day before. I wouldn't be there working my arse off 2 weeks before. I just didn't have that mentality, and footballers won't either. We've got 3 years to be good. That's just a meal ticket to be inconsistent and lazy. And what I'm basically saying is there's no accountability. If Manchester United was a football club where if you fail, you're out, and that damages your career, then you wouldn't do what they did. We're all searching for why Ruben Amorim sets the team up right. The fans are there with their flags and the atmosphere is great. Everyone else has dropped points at the weekend and United don't turn up. And then even better, they don't turn up for 20 minutes and then Everton get a man sent off and they still don't turn up. That says there is something inherently bad wrong in the mentality of our players, because there is no jeopardy. There is no accountability. They're not worried. It's like the boat's sinking and you get woken up at night, but then there's another boat going to come in 10 minutes and save you. You don't get up, you don't panic. And there's no panic in this team. There's no panic, there's no jeopardy, and that comes from the very top, because they know they can't afford to do what Todd Boehly's done at Chelsea or what Man City have done. We can't afford to do that. They can't achieve what needs to be achieved in the short term. So publicly, they have to say it's a long-term plan. But that bites them in the arse, because the players hear it's a long-term plan and go, it's a long-term plan. It's not our responsibility. We probably won't even be here for it. I mean, if you're Bruno Fernandes, you're not even going to be here for it. You're like, 300 grand a week, another year here, maybe Saudi in the summer, few assists, few long balls, couple of worldies, World Cup. I won't even be here. And you know what? Am I wrong? These players that are not performing, most of them know They're not even part of the future. 3 years' time, I won't even be here. I'll have another contract. I'll work hard for another contract for another year. Get myself in the World Cup squad. Yeah, maybe get Player of the Month, and then I'll be gone. And that comes from the top. So, yeah. Amorim has responsibilities, and we all know what they are. But right above him, the most important people have set an incredibly bad standard at this football club. And what I'm trying to figure out, and I think what a lot of you are trying to figure out, is why do we keep having these performances like Watford under Ollie, or Ten Hag, multiple performances, when we finished 8th, or even going back to Mourinho, but we're specifically with Amorim. Why do we get beaten at Old Trafford so many times when we've got 75,000 fans that are desperate for us to play well? Why do we get beaten when everything is set up for us to play well? Because the mentality is terrible in that football club. They are a bunch of mercenaries, But as somebody said, mercenaries can be quite useful because they're just hired help. Man City players could be mercenaries, Do they like Man City? Are they there for the money, but they turn up and win trophies? Man United, probably not even mercenaries, are they? So I think that, we need to obviously have the conversation about Amorim, but I also want to be, I want to be honest. And I also want to play the other. I want to say what I think the major problem is at Man United, because, Carragher, formation, Neville, no credit to Amorim, the, call-in shows, the press, Amorim. These people, for whatever reason, and there's plenty of journalists like this who play this game. I was disappointed yesterday. Loads of journalists who work around Man United, and all I can see is Man United want João Gomez, Man United might go for Semenyo, Man United really want Anderson, and I think, are you actually on the fucking payroll of this club? Do you get favours? Like, do you get interviews and stuff from the club if you stay quiet? Because I'm like, every Man United fan I know that gives a shit about this football club are searching for answers as to why we're so shit. And then all the journalists that apparently support United are like, oh, Elliot Anderson, oh, João Gomez, oh, Semenyo. And I sort of go, you're intelligent people. Why are you not having these conversations? Why are you not talking about why United don't turn up for matches at Old Trafford when 75,000 fans pay to turn up? Why do the people that we work hard all week for 11 players to represent us in a red shirt for the club that we love? They're not special. They are people who, I was listening to Paul Scholes the other day and he went, I just played for Man United. Like dismissing his major role in what he did. He was just sort of like going, I was just a Man United player. And I thought, you know what? That's the mentality, isn't it? I was just a Man United player. For that period of time, I was a Man United player and I'm not now. Because I'm not bigger than Man United. I'm just a Man United player who gets to wear the shirt and represent the club. I don't think that happens anymore. But why are we not talking about that? Why are the press not talking about that? Why do they never talk about the ownership? Because, Amorim's formation didn't work on Monday night. Putting Bruno in the midfield is criminal. But the next manager that comes along will be having the same chat in 2 years' time, because we cannot be competitive on the pitch week in, week out, and we cannot be consistent when the boss is saying don't be consistent. You go to work tomorrow, right? You wake up in the morning, you're Gary Neville FC, you've been up at 5 o'clock, you're buzzing your tits off, you're ready to attack the day, you go into work, you go, there's a pile of work here, I'm going to get that done, and then I'm going to ask for some more work, I want a promotion, I want a pay rise, brilliant. You go into work, you're feeling it, and then the boss says, can I have a word with you? Yeah, why are you so up for it? Well, I want to succeed. I want a pay rise. I want a promotion. I want to do well. What? Forget about that. Forget about that. We're not interested in that. Just go and enjoy yourself. We're making money. Maybe in 3 years' time we'll look for promotions and that. But we're doing okay. What are you in a rush for? Just don't go and pass that around anybody else. The occasional good day's fine, but the rest of the week, just chill out. In fact, I don't even care if you have a bad day. In 3 years' time, we might sell the business. So just keep it ticking along. And I think that's basically what we're getting, because when I see Sir Jim Radcliffe saying 3 years on a project that should take 6 months, it's feet up FC and it comes from the bloody top and it needs calling out. And, in fairness, the Glazers own the football club and all they're bothered about is money. I just wish we could get rid of him. I really, really do. I wish we could. Keel Robinson says, maybe the players are not downing tools against weak teams. It's Amorim's tactics only work against strong teams that attack us, says Keel. Well, I think there's an element of truth in that. But I also think there's a massive element of bullshit in that, because what you're basically saying is that these players are so stupid that they can only play against a certain style of football. In fact, I think you're right. I think you're right, Keel. I think you've nailed the head. I do think Amorim's system works better against a team that attacks us, because counter-attacking football works better in that sense. But I also think he's capable of playing a different brand of football, because I've seen it at Sporting, but these players aren't. So I think in a roundabout way, you've nailed it. We are only good against teams that counter. We can't break a low block because these players can't break a low block, and that's nothing to do with Amorim. They couldn't do it under Ten Hag, and they couldn't do it under Ollie. They can't do it. Bruno Fernandes is not the player that can play against the low block. He's a counter-attacking player. Rashford was a counter-attacking player. So you're right. Yeah. I doubt a tag team of Pep and Arteta would succeed with this current squad. No, they you know, if you could get, and I wouldn't want them, but if you could get Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp to take the Man United job, you know what they'd say? I want it in writing. I want it in writing that the next 2 transfer windows, you're going to get me 10 good players, and I won't sign before it. Blame lies with everyone at the club. The owners don't know football. The players aren't good enough and are massively inconsistent, but Amorim has to take some responsibility. Yes, Slazy. Please, for the love of God, do not misunderstand me or the majority of this community. What we do is not focusing on one thing. I am not in any way, shape or form absolving Ruben Amorim of blame or the players of blame. I'm saying in the blame game, the owners take more than 50% of the blame and you can share it out between Amorim and the players. There is definitely blame towards the manager and there is definitely blame, massive blame toward the players. But the people who can change all of this is the owners. As I've said to you before, if you want to change Amorim, new owners would probably change him anyway. So it always goes back to the new owners change the manager and the players anyway. You changing the manager, I mean, how many times have we done that? How many times have we changed the manager and been back here? Same players are still here. Same owners are still here. Change the owners, change the manager, change the players. You know, if you're Amorim out, you should want the owners out. Because you'll change the manager. What new owners don't change the manager? They all do. So, but for me, the conversation should be about the owners, because this is the biggest Manchester United fan community in the world. That's you. Nobody is having the conversation that Ineos have taken us backwards over 2 years. That when we came in, we had a better win ratio and a better league position under the Glazers exclusively than we do with Ineos and the Glazers. That's a fact 2 years down the line. Our win ratio is terrible. That's what Ineos have done in 2 years. And no one wants to talk about it. Sir Jim Radcliffe's talking about 3 years. It doesn't take 12 months. It doesn't take 12 months to make a team a Champions League team. It's going to take 3 years, apparently. Players react to that by putting their feet up and saying we don't have to work for 3 years. It goes to the top, but no one will talk about it. The press won't talk about it because they're scared. They're scared. I know we'll never get a Rasmus interview again. Call it spade a spade. We'll never get one. We got told that 18 months ago. You're never going to get that again because they don't like the fact that we're negative. To get those interviews, any other fan channel out there, if you want interviews at Man United, right, what you've got to do is rim them, basically. You've got to kiss their arse week in, week out. They don't like anything negative said about them. So, look, I don't know what it's like in the offices of The Athletic or the Manchester Evening News or whatever, but if they want interviews, keep your mouth shut about the Glazers. I know a very big Man United influencer who will never say anything about the Glazers because he doesn't want to damage his relationship with Man United when it's kit launches and everything like that. So that's nothing against them, that's their decision, but that's how Man United work. They want it quiet about the owners and the Glazers and Ineos. They don't mind everyone piling onto Amorim, that's part of the job, but they can't handle the truth. That's got to be kept quiet because that's the destabiliser. The protests, games being cancelled, etc. That's what worries them. People shouting Amorim out, they're not bothered about that because they're in control about whether Amorim gets the sack or not. But the owner stuff, they worry about it. And I do wonder why it's quiet. Glazers and Jim need to have crisis meeting at Carrington, sacking 50% of the players and themselves, says Varjos. Do you think Amorim is going to pick the same team? Look, Frank, there's a lot to talk about this morning in regard to the transfer bollocks, but we'll talk about that next. But look, with regards to Amorim, let me bullet point this. Playing 3 centre-backs for 90 minutes on Monday night was a disgrace. Keeping Luke Shaw on the pitch for 90 minutes is a disgrace. Keeping Bruno on the pitch for 90 minutes in the midfield is a disgrace. Not having a striker on the bench when he could have had Obi there is a disgrace, right? All those things are really bad, and they go massively against Amorim. The players not turning up for 90 minutes is unforgivable. That's worse, in my opinion. You know, the manager made bad calls, but the players not turning up. I don't think Amorim turned up. He just made bad choices. The players didn't bother to turn up. If he picks 90% of the team the same on Sunday, he may as well walk. If that's what his plan is, he may as well walk. Like, but I can't see any changes. I mean, the previews tomorrow night, you'll see what changes I would make. I'll live by my conviction. But, you know, that team should be dismantled. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you one change that will happen on Sunday. And this is me on Wednesday morning. Delo will play at left wing back. Delo will come into the team. That will happen. You know, a player that's been absolute shite all season will come into the team on Sunday, because we know that's going to happen, but beyond that, I don't know. Amorim's in-game management worries me, Mark, says NMR. As I've said before, Cunny says I was having the banter. As I said before, I think like there was a lot of people in the summer that said, oh, 1 game a week, we're going to cook. And I thought, you know what? It's an interesting concept, but the longer the season goes on, we're 10th in the league. Remember I said after 10 games, that was when I expected us to kick on. 11, we nearly lost to Spurs, last minute equaliser. 12, we lose to Everton. 1 point from 6 is kicking on. I thought the first 10 games were going to be the, you know, establish ourselves, and we did. We lost some, we won some. But the time to kick on is now. You know, everybody's had 3 international breaks. They're playing more European games. And we're not kicking on. We're not being kicked on. We're not kicking on, are we? And that, I think, is because it's hurting us having 1 game a week. Because people like, you know, you talk about Xerxes. A lot of people slagging off Xerxes. I actually defend Xerxes here. I don't care. I'm probably in the minority. But I actually defend Xerxes. You know, people say, oh, Mason Mount's having a good season. The guy can't stay fit. He can't play 90 minutes. He was shit on Monday, like everybody else. So, oh, Mason Mount, Money Mount, all this bollocks, just because he does Instagram. I don't think he's a good. I'd get rid of him tomorrow. He can't stay fit. He's a good player, but he can't stay fit. What's the point in having 250 grand a week, 55 million with 1 year left on his contract? The guy can't play 90 minutes. We only play 1 game a week. He can't play 90 minutes. Oh, Money Mount. Oh, look at him at the boxing. Oh, Mason Mount. Oh, look at him on Instagram. I'm not digging him out. I'm digging out what he symbolises. People in our fan base going, oh, Mason Mount, Mason Mount. 250 grand a week, a massive contract, £55 million with 1 year left on his contract. He can't play 90 minutes a week. He can't play 90 minutes in a week. And next season, well, dreams, we want to play 2 games a week. So, I'm sorry, I don't get how Mason Mount gets a glow up and Xerxes gets all the shit. Xerxes is rusty. Like, that's a player who looks like he's coming back from 6 months out injured. I know when you pick your controller up and you put Xerxes on and he plays to his full potential, that's a computer game. In real life, in high-end football, in the Premier League, this is why the first 2 or 3 games of the season aren't that good. Even though teams have had a pre-season, it takes time to get up to the speed of professional football. You're asking Xerxes to go into that United side and perform on Monday night against Everton. When was the last time he played 90 minutes? When was the last time he actually played any football? And you're throwing him in November with a team that's playing week in, week out against the team that's playing week in, week out, some of which have played international football. I mean, I know Xerxes was bad, but I look at those headers and I think if he'd been playing regularly, I'm not even saying starting, if he'd been coming on for half an hour a couple of times a week, he probably scores one of those headers. He's about as sharp as a bowling ball. Like, and people don't understand that. It's like, get rid of Xerxes, he's shit. And we probably will get rid of Xerxes, but I'll defend him, Mainu, Mazraoui, Agate, Heaven, all these players that just get thrown in. They do not have match sharpness, and that's a big thing at this stage of the season. Simply Red says, while Rasmus is still struggling, McTominay's thriving. Did we miss a trick here? Well, Rasmus scored last night as well. Mate, McTominay was sold by Ineos. Take it up with them. Are you Amorim? Done that one from Cunny. Amorim just can't pivot when things go unplanned, says Jacob, and we need our manager back. But I think that's a load of crap, Jacob. I think the problem with modern society is they see one little thing and they turn it into everything. So Monday night, Amorim needed to take a defender off. Absolutely. But people turn that into Amorim just can't adapt. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, against Spurs in the second half, he made subs. Players were just shit, down tools, switched off. Same against Forest in the second half. Brighton, we're 3-0 up. We bring the subs on. Everybody switches off. So he does make tactical changes. Ultimately, it's the same players that let Ten Hag down that are letting this manager down. And they're going to continue to do it. Class of 99 says, agree on Mount. Don't see it. He's our number 7. Get rid. I think people are just... Look, as I said to you, like, genuinely, last night, I had to delete a couple of comments because they were vile. But I did the show yesterday, and I don't think I said anything controversial. You know, we had lost the game. Players hadn't turned up. The owners are morons. And Amorim did make mistakes. And I got people in the comments going, I wish you'd fuck off. You don't know anything about football. And I thought, fair point. But on this point, I actually think I've had a good day. And as I said, you're so reactionary. Stop pouring petrol on the fire. Things aren't that bad. There was another one. It's only one loss. We're actually doing better than last season. Let's stay positive. And oh my God. No to all of you. I'm sorry. You do you. I'll do me. Right? Standards. I am not ever going to sit here and go, it's not that bad to lose at home to Everton. We're 10th. We were 15th last year. It's progress. You may as well get I love Ineos tattooed across your arse. Like, no, I am not putting up with it. For me, Man United should be number 1. And that's it. And I know that's not realistic, but that's the pathway. It's to be number 1. That's where Man United should be. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties. Today, United should be number 1. I'm not going to go, oh, we're 10th. Piss off. Losing at home. What did I say before the game against Everton? With all due respect to Everton, they deserved to beat us. They were better than us. Well done. Go and enjoy yourself on TikTok like they are. But it doesn't matter whether it's 5 games to go and you're in a relegation battle, 5 games to go and it's a mid-table clash, or 5 games to go and you're trying to get in the Champions League. You have to beat Everton at home. That's not disrespectful to Everton. That's just a game where you go, that's got to be 3 points. And when it's not 3 points, you've got to ask why. And when it's against 10 men, you've got to be angry about it. You know, you have to be. We need our manager back to buy the crap owners. No manager can succeed here, says Ricky. If Pep was manager, would the win ratio be the same, says Robert. I don't think Pep Guardiola, Robert, would do well with these players. That's my personal opinion. I don't think he would because they're low IQ. Like they can't play simple passes. They can't keep possession. They can't break down a low block. And the thing is, it supersedes Amorim. It happened under Ten Hag as well. Ten Hag's Ajax side could play football. Amorim's Sporting side could play football. 2 managers, even Rangnick as well. Rangnick's teams can play football. Rangnick couldn't get them to play football. Ten Hag couldn't get them to play football. Amorim can't get them to play football. Now, I know there are some new players and some players have left. But fundamentally, there's still a hardcore of players that are on the leadership team that were there for all of those managers and they just can't play. So, yeah, I think Pep Guardiola would only take this job if he could remove certain players. And and then we'd play better football. But how's about we remove them in the first place? The scary thing is Amorim doesn't want to remove them, and that's something I can't defend him on. Like, his favouritism towards certain players is concerning. But what if the next guy does it? I would only sack Amorim if the next manager did a statement before saying, I'm going to get rid of this leadership team and I'm going to build the club from top to bottom. If he was, I would probably sign up to that, because I don't like the fact, I mean, look, I'm not an idiot. It's Ruben Amorim who puts Bruno Fernandes in the midfield, and it's Bruno Fernandes talking after matches about how he's a good midfielder and how he tracks back and he runs everywhere and he conducts the play. I mean, he must be fucking dreaming, The Everton game must not have happened. He must have gone to bed and played like prime fucking Pirlo. I mean, what is he talking about? But it's Amorim who puts him there. John United 12 says, since 2013, we've had 7 managers, all with different systems and tactics. Did they all deserve to lose their job? Maybe, but one thing stays consistent. The owners, we are weak from the top. And with every manager we sack, the job gets harder. Because when Van Gaal got sacked, Mourinho inherits some of Van Gaal's players that don't suit his system. When Mourinho gets sacked, Ollie inherits Jose and Van Gaal players that don't suit the way he wants to play. When Ollie gets sacked, Ten Hag gets 3 previous managers, and then you've got Amorim, who, there are still managers here from Van Gaal, by the way. There are still players here from Van Gaal. Luke Shaw is a Van Gaal signing. So, Lindelof was here for 8 years. And that's the problem. If you look at a farmyard and it's all been washed down and it's a clear concrete barn, and then every time we sack a manager, there's a pile of shit added. Imagine the pile of shit the next manager gets. Because if you do remove Amorim, it becomes even bigger. And also, it's probably worse this time because, Ollie was a back 4. Mourinho was a back 4. This is a 3-4-3. We haven't got many wingers now. Daniel, thanks for being a member for 60 months. Amorim's recent form has papered over the cracks. When you look at something through rose-coloured glasses, all the red flags just look like flags, says Uncertainty Principle. Also, says Keel, how can I be expected to improvise in a position I don't play? And maybe the players... I've done that one from Keel as well. Okay, let's move on. Let's hit into a little bit of morning news this morning, because it is the morning show. So... what else have we got to talk about? Well, I spoke to you about that. Yeah, look, I saw this story. I'm gonna gloss over it simply because I'm bored of it. It was Andy Mitten talking about Elliot Anderson being a priority, a high priority for Manchester United. I would rather Andy Mitten was talking about how bad the Ineos have been, how bad the ownership is, why this long-termism is killing us in the short term, because it's allowing everybody just to go, it doesn't matter now because we're building something for the future. It's an incredibly bad mentality to have. There's no urgency, there's no targets. As I said, if everything's going to take 3 years, why bother today? And that's what's hurting us. But the thing about Elliot Anderson is, great. Elliot Anderson in that midfield makes us a better team instantly. But Cunha, in his Wolves days, makes us better instantly. And Burmo at Brentford makes us better instantly. We're not better. We're not markedly better. We're still struggling. So Elliot Anderson goes into that midfield. I'm past thinking that one player is going to come in and change anything for Man United. We've seen how these good players get infected by the leadership team here. You come into the dressing room, who's in charge? I'm in charge. Don't worry about it today. But I want to. Don't you fucking dare try today. Don't you upstage us today. We ain't trying today. So that's what worries me about Elliot Anderson is, yeah, great signing, good player, but how many of these players have we brought? How many of these players get brought in? We've already seen Cunha have a bad game against Spurs. We've seen Mbeumo have quiet days. They were brilliant last season. So it worries me about that. But also, it's just pure spin. We're not buying Elliot Anderson in January. This is a summer signing. What about today? What about tomorrow? What about next week? What about the week after that? We've still got this season. And we're talking about Elliot Anderson in the summer. And let's not forget, Real Madrid might be looking at Elliot Anderson. Bayern Munich might be looking at Elliot Anderson. Arsenal might be looking at Elliot Anderson. In which case, if we're not in Europe, you can forget about it. this is the same as what happened with Kenda. We did nothing in January. David Ornstein says Man United are really in advanced talks or something with Kenda. He signs for Chelsea a month later. So Elliot Anderson, after an Everton loss, whoop-de-doo. It doesn't mean anything, does it? Pamela Anderson, it doesn't matter. It's not. It might happen, it might not. But what it really does is distract us from the fact that we're shite and that Elliot Anderson's not going to be able to help us until the summer anyway. So I'm more focused on what you're doing in January, because I think more than Everton, the thing that's going to be terrifying the owners at the moment is, how do we avoid spending in January? Because I don't think they want to. So they'll be going, how do we avoid buying players in January if we're shit? Because it's one thing the fans saying you've got to buy a midfielder in January regardless of whether we're in the top 4 or not. But if you're not in the top 4, it's even worse. So I think that we're probably going to get a lot more of this. Elliot Anderson's the guy. Belaber's the guy. Stiller's the guy, because they know we can't buy them in January, and it might make fans go, I'm willing to wait till the summer, which is, I'm sure, what the club want to do. But we've got to do stuff in January. And I don't think this is being discussed enough. We need a bloody striker yesterday. Like, people say, oh, it was a good idea to get Rasmus. I think it was get rid of Rasmus. It was a bad idea. I think it was a bad idea, because whether you think he's good enough or not, as I said, I'd have had Obi on the bench on Monday, because at least it's a striker. He might come on and struggle, but he's a striker. We don't have one at the moment. We don't have a striker at the moment. And yeah, you can play a false 9, but a false 9 against the thing about a false 9 is, against a low block, it doesn't work. Against a low block, you need a focal point. You need someone to, harass the defenders. We didn't have anybody to do that. Cunha would not have made a difference against the low block, because they're compact, they're close. So yeah, I think we need a striker as well. Our bench was, Michael says, our bench was so terrible on Monday. Transfers are needed. 1 attacker on the bench. Minimum 3 in January. Hope you have a good day, Mark. You too. Well, look, we're still getting the talk. Well, we're still getting the talk around 2 players. João Gomez and Semenyo. Now, I know Beth spoke about this on the 2 o'clock yesterday, that there is, Ben Jacobs had said previously that Man United are sniffing around Semenyo a little bit. I mean, look, the way the club is at the moment, if Man United swooped in and signed Semenyo, I don't think anybody would moan about it. But what I would say is, if we've got £65 million for Semenyo, why are we not buying a midfielder? And that has to be the priority. So the Semenyo story, again, I don't know what that's all about. I really don't. You look at Semenyo and he's basically a left winger. That's what he is. He's a right-footed left winger. So you look at United and you go, what are we going to do? Use him as an inverted left wing back? Yeah, it's an attacking move, but I don't see that as being worth 65 million when your midfield is terrible. So it has to be a midfielder. Now, João Gomez, look, to me, it's Conor Gallagher or it's João Gomez. I don't see a Stiller or an Anderson or a Belaber or a Wharton moving in January. So you're in that position where you've got to go, yeah, as a lot of people in the chat are saying, midfield first. Exactly, Fenke, and Slice of Sib as well. It's got to be a midfielder. So if you're going to go for a midfielder in January, it's got to be João Gomez or Conor Gallagher, based on what we know at the moment. There is Manu Kone as well at Roma, but I don't know whether that can be done in January. But it's a tough ask, It's a tough ask. I'm never going to say buying a midfielder is a bad thing. But as many of you have said, I don't know whether players look at it like this, but if I was a midfielder and my agent says Man United want to buy me in January, I would have and some players don't do this, they just see Man United, a wage increase, a status increase, it's Man United, let's go. Some players are intelligent, and if I was a midfielder that Man United were looking at in January, I'd go, it's a very volatile club. I mean, it's the biggest club in England. Everything is scrutinised. There's ex-player podcasts. There's fan content. You're going to get scrutinised. And as we've seen with players, people slag them off literally the day they sign. They don't give them any time. So if I was João Gomez going into that Man United midfield, I would be a little bit concerned about the January move, because I'd be like, well, I'm going to play next to Bruno Fernandes, which doubles my work up straight away. We have to buy a midfielder in January, but we will still be playing them next to Bruno Fernandes for the rest of the season. I think the midfield doesn't actually get solved until we boot Casemiro and Bruno anyway. I mean, if I had João Gomez and Elliot Anderson, I think we move. But if you have Elliot Anderson and Bruno, or João Gomez and Bruno, I still think that's a problem at United. So we do desperately need a midfielder in January, because, I mean, it's obvious, but it's still going to lead. I still think we're going to have problems while he continues down that road. Yeah, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that one. Semenyo have spoken to you about, what's that? Oh, Gomez. Oh, 44 million apparently is what they're talking about for João Gomez. I mean, how long's a piece of string? In relation to the price, I don't know. I don't know. They're going to get relegated. So if he's got a relegation clause, which I'm sure he has, it depends what the relegation clause price is. If the relegation clause price is 40 million, then you probably are going to have to play a little bit more from it, yeah. If the relegation clause is 30 million, then you might get him for 35. But I don't know what the relegation clause is. Bold Eagle says, forget about Semenyo and go and get Tony. He'll get us 10 to 15 goals. You know what? Honestly, right? I watched back the extended highlights of the Everton game. You know, it nearly destroyed me. But there was a period where we were putting in, you know, multiple crosses into the box because we're thick. Because Everton basically played like a Christmas tree and funneled us down the flank to put the cross in, because we're not intelligent, we've got no IQ, we can't move the ball quickly along the ground. And funnily enough, when we did do that once, I think Mbeumo had a shot, it was a very good save. But, you know what? Xerxes had 3 headers. One over the bar, one wide, and one was a brilliant save by Pickford. And you just reminded me, Bold Eagle, if we'd had someone like Ivan Toney up front on Monday night, I think we'd have won the game. That doesn't mean we played well. We were against 10 men. Now, somebody will say, well, what are you moaning about then? If we're only a striker away, we're a good set. No, we were playing against 10 men, and some of the crosses into the box were decent. If we had someone like Ivan Toney up front, or Sesko, we would have scored some of those goals. But we're relying on a guy who's not really a striker, who's got no match sharpness. So I agree with you. I think that, you know, it's Everton at home. You're going to create chances. It's criminal we didn't score a goal. With all due respect to Everton, they shouldn't be coming to Old Trafford and getting a clean sheet. We've been averaging 2 goals a game, and now we've got none. But a lot of things fell into Everton's hands on Monday. Like, we have a manager that won't change his system in game. We had a team that didn't have a striker. And we also cannot play through a low block. So even though they had a man sent off in the 20th minute, from Everton's point of view, you funnel us down the wide. And as long as you defend crosses well, you're going to get a result. And that's what happened. 9 wins in 35 games, apparently, says Malware. I'm not aware about the actual win ratio, to be honest, but I guarantee you it's low. Crazy how you predicted keeping Bruno was make or break for Amorim this season. Could have truly rebuilt the midfield. Seems like such an easy decision. Ryan, who has a Chelsea badge, so must be a Chelsea fan. I don't think there's a United fan out there that wants to be right. Well, I tell a lie. I think there are some people that want to be right. But I feel like, unfortunately, yeah, I want Amorim to prove us wrong. I want him to be wrong about Bruno, but I feel like I've watched Bruno in a Man United. Well, I have watched Bruno in a Man United shirt more than Amorim. And Amorim obviously gets to see him in training, but, you know, how many games have we watched Bruno Fernandes play for Manchester United? And at no point have I ever thought he was a midfielder. You know, I look at Chelsea last night. Reece James, Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez. They're second in the league. They're doing really well in the Champions League. You know, Arsenal are top of the league, strong midfield. Liverpool last year, strong midfield. Newcastle have been successful on a strong midfield. When have Man United had a strong midfield? And how much have Man United struggled over the last 10 years? We've never had a strong midfield, and it's amazing. You know, I would criticise Todd Boehly for not spending big money on a top striker and a top goalkeeper, but he spent a lot of money on the midfield, 100 million apiece for Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo. Jurgen Klopp rebuilt his midfield before he left. Arsenal spent 100 million pounds on Declan Rice. They spent a lot of money on Zubimendi. Pep always spends on his midfield. It's an area. I mean, look, there are us older fans that say, you know, we never really replaced Roy Keane, and that's 2006. I think, you know, Scholes and Giggs stayed playing for too long to fill that gap. Carrick was a good player, but in nearly 20 years, we've only really had Carrick and Keane that you could say were top level, reliable midfielders. Because, I mean, Paul Scholes was good, but and, you know, maybe I'm being a bit unfair on Scholes because Scholes was a midfielder, to be fair. But people like Giggs, Pogba, they, you know, even Owen Hargreaves, Darren Fletcher, there's just the very sporadic. There's something about Man United that doesn't seem to value the midfield. It can't be the Glazers, because who came in 2005? The Glazers. But literally since 2006, we've just never really prioritised the midfield. And every successful team does. You know, you look at the midfield that Real Madrid had when Casemiro was there with Kroos and Modric. You look at the midfield of Barcelona with Xavi and Busquets and Iniesta. It's such an important area, and we completely neglect it. And I've got to say, you know, I said it yesterday, Berardo, Wilcox, there are these bots and PR spinners out there that, you know, kiss their arse. But, I mean, you're the CEO and you're the director of football, and you haven't prioritised the midfield. I think that's criminal. And for Amorim, it's criminal as well. I mean, I don't know who's at fault. Wilcox might be there saying, I wanted midfielders, they wouldn't buy one. You know, I don't know because they don't talk. But in the absence of information, you have to blame the leadership. So the CEO, the owners, the director of football and the manager, to leave the midfield is incredible. Absolutely incredible. To go into a Premier League season and think that Casemiro and Bruno are going to work is incredible. And we had this conversation in June. And it was the sort of decision that makes or breaks you. Remember when Leon was spun as a January signing, says Tio. Well, wasn't Leon spun as a summer signing as well? I mean, I think they'll use him again in January. I mean, and ultimately what's happened with Leon is exactly what I said would happen. He'll go out on loan. But there was the bots and the positivity crew were there going, no, he's a signing. He's a January signing, he's a summer signing, and he's a first team signing. He's none of those things. He's a prospect who's going to go on loan. And Kone is going to go on loan as well. And people spoke about Kone. Oh, he's going to be ready for the first team. He's a midfielder and he's ready for the first team. Yeah. Obi. Oh, he's going to be pushing Rasmus out. He's going to be a first team player. But no, none of them. They're all going to go out on loan. Even Heavens probably heading out on loan as well. Ryan says, and on top of Caicedo and Enzo, we've bought Lavia and Santos. Any combination of Anderson, Ederson, Gomez, Stiller, and even Belieber instantly upgrade your midfield. Mate, James Garner upgrades our midfield. Sander Berg upgrades our midfield. Paulo Paulinho from Spurs upgrades our midfield. Like this, I I could start a list of midfielders that upgrades our midfield now, and I'd still be doing it for the 2 o'clock show. Serious note: how long will it take for United to get to a Liverpool-Arsenal level? Are the plans for the owners just to keep this club a mid-table club because it's crap to see how much such a great club is where it is at the moment? Says Mario. You want my honest answer? I've given it you before. We won't catch Liverpool and Arsenal. I said it in the summer. Liverpool and Arsenal are already ahead of us. And I know the league table at the moment, but it's the league table at the end of the season that matters. Liverpool and Arsenal are already ahead of us. And in the summer, they bought better than us. So they're already ahead. They bought better. And next summer, they'll buy better again because there's so much money swashing around in the Champions League. So same with Chelsea, same with Man City. We're miles behind and will continue to be miles behind because we won't spend the money. And it goes back to the midfield again. How can you say you want to catch these teams when they're strengthening in all areas and you won't strengthen the midfield? You're literally falling further behind. So we're not going to catch them, in my opinion, because we're not set up to catch them. I think the owners, the only motivation the owners have is this. They want that stadium. It's like owning a bit of wasteland and knowing if you get the right backing, you can build a load of plush apartments and make a shitload of money. The big play here from the Glazers has always been to make money out of Man United. And the big play to get Ineos to come and work with them was, with your connections, we can get this built and we can make a shitload of money. And then in 5-10 years time, we can sell it. Because Man United ain't going to lose its fans. Man United's not going to stop selling shirts. Even when we're shit. What last year proved was you can finish 15th, still sell all your season tickets, and still sell a load of shirts. People don't want to have this conversation, but it is a conversation. The Glazers and Ineos just want to build that stadium, and then they've doubled their money. And they've already proven that you can come in and make the club worse and still be profitable. We're still on the telly every week. People still buy the shirts. People still buy the season tickets. We finished 15th. For the last 2 years, we've been gradually getting worse. We can lose to Everton. There are no protests. There are no game cancellations. There's nothing. So they're basically sat there going, let's get this stadium built. Let's double our money. And then let's see where we are there. But this is not a football club. We're not being run like a football club. If this was a football club, after Monday night, there'd be all sorts going on. There'd be crisis talks. There'd be this, that, and the other. They're not bothered. They're not bothered. They're just hoping that it turns around on a miracle from Amorim. And I hope they're right, but it will be miraculous. It will not be by design. Forbes just said we're number 2 most valuable club. Exactly, Robert McCormack. Exactly. Owners don't seem to realise how important good midfielders are, says Rico. Well, who would you rather have? Casemiro and Bruno or legendary McFred? Oh, Ryan. I couldn't stand McTominay. Look, Bruno Fernandes is not a midfielder and neither is McTominay. Let's not rewrite history. So, Bruno or McTominay, they're both number 10s. So, they cancel each other out. So, then it's Fred or Casemiro. I didn't like McFred. So, I'm not going to have a little bit of romance. It basically comes down to, do you prefer Fred or Casemiro? And to be honest with you, Fred had no first touch. So I probably would prefer Bruno and Casemiro because I didn't rate McFred at all. And on that bombshell, I've had enough of the internet. Thank you everybody for watching. We will be 7 o'clock live tonight because it's Arsenal Bayern Munich, and I'm really hoping that Bayern Munich really do turn up and give us a cracking game tonight because Barcelona really didn't last night, did they? So 2 o'clock show as well. Thanks for watching. Remember, some people might, in your depression around United, we play Palace at midday on Sunday. We're then playing Thursday night. I think it's West Ham. And then it's Wolves on Monday night. So we've got 3 games in 7 days coming up. 9 points. Win all them, and everything will be okay again, won't it? You know, we're flip-flops. Take care in a bit. Thank you very much. Stay safe. And thank you very much for watching. Absolute legends as always. And thanks for getting your comments in. And if you didn't watch live, get your comments in. Speak to you in a bit. Thank you.